damn it, I am feeling old. It's time for a review of Stadium Arcadium, the 9th studio album by the Red Hot Chili Peppers, a rock and funk-based band. It's been 10 years, an entire decade since this album came out, and I figured it was finally time to not only get back into Throwback Thursdays, but to review one of my favorite albums of all time. Definitely in my top 3 in terms of Chili Peppers records. If you're not familiar, the Red Hot Chili Peppers are a band that formed in the early 1980s, have notoriously worked with Rick Rubin since the late 80s in terms of their producers, and they've just kind of moved forward with this funk sound that kind of worked its way into more of an alternative and rap rock approach, I suppose, and as the years passed, they hit albums like Californication, which saw the return of their former guitarist after losing Dave Navarro, being fired from the band. John Frusciante steps back into the picture, and we see more of a mellow sound coming out of the Chili Peppers. Less of the rapping, more, I guess, approach in terms of the vocals and just the harmonies and the melodies. And that was really driving their songs on the records Californication and By the Way. On Stadium Arcadium, we get a mix of the both, and it's really kind of a tongue twister for me to talk about because there is so much content. Over 2 hours worth of material here. It's a double album separated into different planets, which is a really interesting concept for me, and I don't think that these songs are on 2 different levels necessarily, but they are split into groups of 14, and I'm going to talk about them all at once, which could be a bit tricky. Now, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, over the years, I've definitely been a fan. The reason I got into them was this record. This was the first thing that I ever owned from them. I remember picking up the CD from Circuit City, being so excited. I got my mom to drive me there. This was one of the first 10 albums that I ever owned, and it's still back here on this bookcase to this day. I actually recently picked up the Stadium Arcadium vinyl, which is a really special thing for me to get my hands on because it comes in this really nice little binder type thing here. Hard material. Nice little case. Of course, it's got both of the planets, Jupiter and Mars, and it's a 4 LP set. And it just really inspired me to go ahead and tackle a full-on review of this record. I had been putting it off for so long because it's a lot to dive into. There's a lot to digest. But let's try and keep it as brief as we can and actually do this thing justice. Now, like I mentioned, it had been kind of an exploratory time since Frusciante returned to the band, and I believe it was 1998. After One Hot Minute came out, Navarro didn't exactly do well with the band. A lot of clashing personalities there. A lot of drug problems. Anthony Kiedis, the lead singer of Red Hot Chili Peppers, has been through the ringer whenever it comes to drugs, and that definitely inspires not only throughout their career, but once again on this record here, Stadium Arcadium, in terms of what he's writing about. There's certain situations that are at times based on fictional characters like Dani California, a character that has appeared in By the Way and Californication, Teenage Bride with a Baby Inside. That was the same character, he said, in Dani California, and now we get more of a full-fledged backstory. I like that he writes about these fictional characters, but at the same time, they're obviously still applicable to real-life situations and things that he had been through. A lot of these songs on Stadium Arcadium appear to be about his girlfriend at the time, a model he was dating, and I definitely see that bleeding through into the music. I really like how this record sounds. There's some striking guitars, although there's a very nice restraint from John Frusciante here in terms of the restraint and the fury, I suppose. Some of these tracks are just much more slow burning, and I love that they can mix it up like that. They throw in moments like Slow Cheetah, Hey, Wet Sand, which is easily one of the best songs on this record, and then you've got your more fast-paced stuff like Snow, Heyo, which definitely picks up with that furious little riff that kicks in, and I love Dani California. Obviously, it's been one of my favorite songs of all time ever since the first time that I heard it. I knew that I had heard something special there. One of the best guitar solos of all time in my book, so I was not let down by the guitar playing here. In fact, I think it's probably some of the best Chili Peppers work ever, and I know that might be an unpopular opinion to have, but I still feel like Stadium Arcadium as a whole is just so strong. It has a full circle of things that really make it work. Melodic drumming, great guitar work, vocal harmonies that just go unnoticed in the Chili Peppers book so often, I feel like, but they make some of these tracks like Charlie so great. And even Come On Girl, I mean, there's so many songs on here that wouldn't be what they are if it wasn't for those stacked vocals. The guitar playing here is often striking, but at the same time it's very subtle and nuanced in places. Rather than just like a rollicking riff here and there, there's often more of that slow burn approach like I was talking about. There's some stellar solos here that really separate themselves from some of their past material though. Really makes tracks like 21st Century, Come On Girl, Turn It Again, and obviously the smash single Dani, California stand high above the rest. Now Dani, California is a very special song, not only in terms of its lyrical content like I was already discussing, the story behind it, but it was kind of a song that brought them back into the mainstream. They weren't exactly fading out of the spotlight, but this is one that actually made it inside of the top 10 on the Billboard Hot 100. Worldwide success. Snow Heyo was also another one that really followed it up and was big, peaked in the number 22, I believe it was, on the Hot 100. It's just a very sharp track, both of those, honestly, and I loved seeing another generation falling in love with Red Hot Chili Peppers' music, and I was one of those people, and it made me go back and check out some of their previous material. Now, I have to say that I am more of a fan of Red Hot Chili Peppers post One Hot Minute. I know that's going to be an unpopular opinion for some, but I like them once they kind of infuse. They still have those moments where they bring in the rap rock aspect and a lot of the funk. I love that aspect of the band, but they tone it down a bit and I guess get a little bit easier to comprehend. This album is way too long for me to possibly go into detail on every single song. I can't talk about my feelings and opinions on all of them, but I do want to highlight a good handful of my favorites and a couple of tracks that just don't work quite as well for me. Now, I will say this right off the bat, this is my favorite Red Hot Chili Peppers record in terms of the lyrical content here because I feel like they're sharper than ever. They often speak of fame and success, using fictional characters to get their point across, carrying out the meanings of these songs, drugs, failing relationships, conflict, and euphoria. Definitely big subjects here that pop up all throughout, and they kind of harp on them all throughout Stadium Arcadium. I think it goes without saying, but obviously I'm definitely digging the singles off of this record. The funky Hump to Bump, Charlie is fantastic, such a catchy chorus. Dani, California is an explosion, a movement of a song. Tell Me Baby infuses kind of that old style that they had, the rap rock and the big booming bass line on there. Love that as well. And then of course Snow Heyo, which was another huge song for them, one that changed me and how I viewed the Chili Peppers. This is actually the song that got me checking out more of their material. After hearing Dani, California, I heard that one, I was like, alright, that's it, I'm going out and buying the album right now. Snow Heyo is just a song about starting fresh, coming clean, and just running into new territory with a newfound confidence. I love that. However, not all of the songs are singles, of course, that wouldn't be the case. I mean, there's 28 damn songs on this thing, so there have to be some others that I'm digging, so let's go ahead and start with Slow Cheetah, a song about mixing cocaine and heroin, drug problems. I really had to read into the lyrics on this record to really comprehend what was going on. I didn't get it at first. 10 years ago, I was 14 years old, and this stuff was sailing right over my head. But then later in high school, earlier, like my first year or two of college, and I was just like, oh, these songs are more than what meets the eye. Okay. Slow Cheetah is just so fantastic. I love the utilization of the acoustic guitar all throughout. It's not something that I would necessarily expect, but it works phenomenally well. The lyrics are very smart here. I like how they are kind of concealed in a way, but it also kind of references some stuff with their past guitarists that actually died of a drug overdose. That's what a lot of fans' theories are as well. I think I'm buying into it as well. She Looks to Me is another one in the diary of drug stories, and I think that I like this one so much because it almost feels like a father figure looking to a daughter trying to pull someone out of this really shitty situation that they're in. She's like laying in the bathroom floor, she's surrounded by drugs and the temptations and her thoughts, and she shoots up again, or she uses again, and he sees her there. He wants to help her, but there's not necessarily anything that he can do. And what's really weird is the fact that the music in these songs often contradicts the downright dark, feelings that are practically bleeding out of these songs. The emotion and the power is there. It's very raw, but at the same time, the music often feels a little bit upbeat, and I love it whenever a band or an artist can do that and strike a balance perfectly. Definitely some happier moments that I love on this album as well. Desecration Smile is a great one. It's not necessarily a super upbeat and up-tempo tune, but at the same time, I love the love story that's going on behind it. 21st Century is a hell of a foot stomper of a tune. It's one of those tracks that provides social commentary that's still somewhat accurate 10 years later. In fact, it might be even more accurate, and that's probably why I love it so much. Cheetah talks about kind of the insanity that he sees in the 21st century and the things that human beings are doing these days, and it just gets crazier and crazier what it takes to entertain us, what it takes to make somebody famous, or how easy it is to become famous, I suppose. And he just seems kind of jaded as a result, and I love how it plays out and how, like I said, it's still accurate. It holds up so well because of the content in the song. I can't help but love the bumbling bass line on 21st Century. It just kind of rolls over and over again, and I think that this has turned into a favorite of mine just because it solidifies itself as a super smart track that I think that Cheetah is practically known for at this point in his career. The album goes out on a really strong winning streak with tracks like Animal Bar, Make You Feel Better, the slow burner of a song If that I would not expect out of them, but it sounds beautiful even so. There's tracks like that, Wet Sand on the first disc that I already mentioned, just being phenomenal tunes that maybe you wouldn't see coming from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, but that makes them even more powerful. They just tower above some of their peers. But like I was saying, the little winning streak continues with like So Much I, and then Storm in a Teacup, a nice little song that seems like a description of this relationship that he's in. He wants to be in this girl's life in some way, and definitely one of the harder rocking tunes that you're gonna find on this record. Now I mentioned that one, and of course Readymade is another one that just has this phenomenal solo, definitely more upbeat, a little bit more classic Chili Peppers with the funk and that sort of thing, and then it works in this balls to the wall solo that I absolutely love. It's just bonkers, ballistic. I cannot resist it. We Believe follows right after Storm in a Teacup and kicks all amounts of ass. It's just one of the coolest tunes that you're gonna find on this double record, and it has this really nice riff that it's built off of. It just progresses all throughout the song, and it's nothing but pleasure on the eardrums. Catchiness plays a huge factor in some of these tracks, and I think that that's something the Chili Peppers have developed a knack for over the years. Back in the day, we saw that with their big hits like Aeroplane, Give It Away, and once again, they're building on those effervescent melodies that just go unmatched by a lot of their rock peers. Now, there's always strong choruses out there in the world of rock and funk music, but I think the Chili Peppers have always had a slight edge because of what they do with the instrumentation that surrounds it. Come On Girl might not be the most in-depth song lyrically, but it's one that is hard to deny in terms of its content. It's just chock full of memorable riffs, bass lines, and of course the chorus on this thing strikes as hard as anything out there in the world of Chili Peppers. Another one that stands out in my mind is Especially in Michigan, and not necessarily catchy immediately to the ear, but I thought that it's almost genius at this point. I didn't like it at first because it has this strong guitar lead. I really like the way that it jumps out there. It makes the guitar stand out more, but they kind of mute the first part of the chorus, and the words kind of get unfocused, mumbled, but you can hear Cheetah talking about Especially in Michigan, and I love it at this point. I love it more than anything. It's one of my favorite moments on the record, and at first I just didn't like it and kind of dismissed it, and I almost want to smack myself for that. They slow things down with a handful of these tracks, and it works quite well. I already talked about some of the ones that I love, but hey, Strip My Mind, which are ones that just kind of see a little bit more of a thinking out loud type scenario that I absolutely love. If, which I already mentioned with that nice lonesome guitar, really setting the tone for a love story. Wet Sand, Death of a Martian, which is a little bit more energetic and up-tempo, I suppose, but it's just such a good closer. I love the spoken word outro to this thing. It really sends the album off on such a high note. Okay, so there's a few moments that I don't quite like as much as others. On the first disc, She's Only 18 is one that I just feel like I've heard that story before, and I'm not necessarily calling the Chili Peppers out for copying someone else or something like that. It's just that I feel like it's bland compared to these other tracks. It doesn't stand out compared to those. On the second disc, I feel like there's a couple of songs that don't stand out to me quite as much either. Make You Feel Better, which is just a song for a girl and obviously trying to cheer someone up. Just, it doesn't do that much for me, if I'm being quite honest. Fast and Animal Bar that follows right after it. While I do appreciate the guitar work here, it's not one that's really aged that well for me. Summing it all up, I love this album. I love the wide array of instrumentation that it provides. Like I said, there's a nice balance between a lot more upfront in your face guitar work and some more subtle stuff that takes time to settle in. It's been 10 years at this point. What do you think of this record? Do you think that I did a good job reviewing this? Because let me tell you something, it was hard. It took a long time. I've been slowly working away at this review and pushing myself towards it for a while, and I finally committed whenever I made the vinyl purchase, and here we are. Balls deep in the Red Hot Chili Peppers review, and I'm going with a 4.5 for Stadium Arcadium. If you guys have heard this record, let me know your thoughts on it in the comment section down below. You've had 10 years at this point, so I'm hoping you have. No, I'm just kidding. Not everyone has heard it. I know that. So if you've never heard this Red Hot Chili Peppers album before, do yourself a favor, check it out in the link in the description down below. I think it's a fantastic record. That's just my opinion, but I hope you'll at least enjoy a handful of tracks on it. If there's other throwback reviews you'd like to see me do, let me know with a comment. I would like to bring back more Throwback Thursdays if I have the time. It's just really something that I have to do on a week-to-week basis, decide if I can do it at this point, because there's a lot of other albums that I want to get to and I already don't have as much time as I would like to. So I hope you enjoyed this one. It's been a long time coming. Smash the like button on it, subscribe to the channel, because friends don't let friends go unsubscribed. 10 years of Stadium Arcadium and a new Red Hot Chili Peppers record is just around the corner. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys very soon right here on ARTV.